Good morning everyone and welcome to part 2 of lecture 2 under module 6. If we recollect our discussion in the previous lecture, we discussed about the characteristics of biomass, how the characteristics of the biomass affect the properties of biofuel, or you can say a fuel. Then in that we discuss about different properties such as proximate analysis, ultimate analysis, structural component of biomass. In proximate analysis specifically, we discuss a different range of properties such as density, the moisture content in the biomass sample. Then we discuss about the volatile matter content in the biomass sample, ash content, and then fixed carbon content in the biomass sample. After discussing this compositional analysis mainly in terms of proximate analysis, although we discussed all these properties using ASTM standard technique, sometimes it may happen so that the determination of the proximate analysis by ASTM standard method is a time consuming and also expensive. As a result, thermogrammetric analysis, which is an alternative method to estimate the proximate analysis of biomass, is used. So at the end we also discussed about the proximate analysis and how to estimate this proximate analysis using a thermogravimetric technique. So in today's lecture we will continue our discussion in the same topic, that is characteristics of biomass. So today we mostly focused on the ultimate analysis of biomass sample. So in the ultimate analysis, the first thing is higher heating value of a biomass sample, or we can say a higher heating value of a fuel sample. So higher heating value is also abbreviated as HHV, or also it is called as gross calorific value, and it is also abbreviated as GCV. So higher heating value is the amount of heat released by unit mass or volume of a fuel, that means which is initially at say 25 degrees C, and once this is combusted, the product have returned to a temperature of 25 degrees C. It also includes the latent heat of vaporization of water, and HHV is also called as gross calorific value, as already mentioned. So gross calorific value or the HHV are both are the same. So you can estimate this HHV and the gross calorific value using Bohm calorimeter, and the standard ASTM method is this. So this HHV value can be evaluated using above experimental instrument, and the equation for the HHV value is HHV is equal to M suffix W plus capital K into Cp W and then delta T. We subtract this entire quantity from summation of Qi, and it is divided by M. So where Mw is the mass of water in the vessel when you are performing this instrumental analysis, where K is 0.441 kilogram water equivalent value of the calorimeter. Similarly, Cpw is the specific heat of water, as we are using water as a medium there in the vessel. Delta T is the increase in water temperature after combusting the sample in the vessel, and M is the weight of the combustible fuel. Now if you see here, the summation of Qi, which is termed as the sum of correction factors for additional thermal effects. So now what is meant by this additional thermal effect? So Qi is the heat required at the starting of the process to combust the wire which is used in the analysis and the thread according to this following equation, which is nothing but summation of Qi is HHV value of wire and then the mass of combusted, or you can say the burned wire, plus HHV of thread and then the mass of the combusted thread. So, once you take the summation of these values, it reflects the heat required at the starting of the process for these two components, that is wire and the thread which is used in the instrument during the analysis. So, once you have this summation of Qi value, we can put this value here in this equation and then we can estimate the HHV value of a biomass, or you can say HHV value of the fuel. So, once we estimate this HHV value, so similar to the HHV value is also there is one other term which is called as a lower heating value, which is similar to the HHV value. Only difference is here in this case this is termed as net calorific value of a sample, or you can say the fuel, and it is defined as the amount of heat which is released by completely combusting a specified quantity of a sample, and it is less than the latent heat of vaporization of water in the combustion product. So, now why it is so? Because as once you combust this particular sample in the vessel, the latent heat of vaporization of the water, it cannot be recovered. That means the, you can say, the water in the fuel does not condense. As a result, the latent heat of vaporization of this component is not recovered. Therefore, the effective heat which is available, or you can say to use in a boiler or for any specific application, is a lower amount, because it is less than the exact energy in the form of chemical energy stored in the fuel. As a result, while calculating the LHV value, we subtract this latent heat of vaporization of water from the HHV value to get the exact lower heating value of a fuel, or you can say the sample to be analyzed. So, in that case, the lower heating value, that is nothing but the LHV, is evaluated from the HHV value itself. So, there is a relation between the HHV and LHV value which is used to estimate the lower heating value of a sample. So, that is nothing but LHV is equal to higher heating value of a sample minus latent heat of vaporization of water, which is in kilojoule per kilogram, into 9 H by 100 minus M by 100. So, now here this H and M represents the percentage of hydrogen and moisture content respectively. So, with the help of this, we can also estimate the lower heating value of the sample, as well as using the above equation we can also estimate the higher heating value of the sample, which is widely known as the calorific value of the sample. So, these two terms gives us the information about the heating value of a biomass sample, which can be used for the specific application. Now, if we recollect our discussion in the previous lecture about the proximate analysis, in that also we discuss about the different properties. So, in that specifically we discuss about the moisture content in the sample, and the moisture content in the sample can also be expressed on the basis of different terms. For example, on the weight basis, on the dry weight basis. Similar to moisture and the fuel composition, higher heating values may also be expressed in the same form as follows. For example, if you say the higher heating value on the basis of as received basis, that means we can say on the weight basis. So, it is also abbreviated as W suffix B, that indicates the higher heating value of a sample on as received basis, means which is used directly for the estimation of higher heating value before doing any pre-processing of the sample. So, the higher heating value on as received basis or on weight basis is indicated as Q by M F, that is also in kilojoule per kilogram of sample basis. So, higher heating value or the weight basis of on the weight basis of the sample can be calculated using this particular equation. Now similarly, on dry basis, if we need to calculate this value, so we can also calculate the higher heating value of a sample based on dry basis, which is also called as moisture free basis. That means moisture free basis, and the equation for this particular term to represent or express is nothing but Q by mf minus mw, that is also represented in the form of kilojoule per kilogram of sample. Now the heating value may also be expressed in the another form, that is represented as moisture ash free basis sample. So in this case, if you try to see the expression to represent this equation in the form of HHV value on dry ash free basis, also it is termed as moisture ash free basis sample, and it is expressed in this particular way, that is mf minus mw minus m ash, and it is also in the form of again kilojoule per kg. Now if you see here, this mf is nothing but kilogram of fuel which contains kilogram of fuel which contains mw kilogram of moisture, then m ash, that is nothing but kilogram of ash in the sample, and whereas Q here is nothing but the kilojoule of heat contained in that specific sample. So these are the three different ways by which we can also express the higher heating value of a sample. So based on the sample and its condition, whether it is as received basis or whether the sample has been pre-processed and then we have estimated the higher heating values, or whether the sample has been pre-processed and after removing the ash, if the sample is being used for the analysis purpose. So there are different ways by which we can express the higher heating value of a sample, or maybe you can say the fuel as well. So now based on this particular concept of higher heating value, we can find out the calorific value of a sample, or you can say the estimation of the higher heating value as we have discussed in the previous slide. The experimental methods are the most widely used reliable methods for the estimation of the higher heating value of a biomass sample. In case if the estimation of HHV value is not possible experimentally, then HHV value of biomass can also be estimated from the proximate analysis. So now for that reason, a Dulong equation, which is widely used equation for the estimation of higher heating value using the proximate analysis, and this equation is a empirical correlation for the estimation of higher heating value of a biomass sample, although this particular equation originally developed for a coal sample, but later used with modified coefficients for biomass sample as well. So the equation is in the form of HHV is equal to 349.1 into the carbon content in the sample plus 1178.3 hydrogen content in the sample plus 0.5, that is the sulfur content in the sample, minus 103.4 the oxygen content in the sample, minus 15.1 into nitrogen content, minus 21.1 into the ash content of the sample to be analyzed. So that is also in the form of kilojoule per kilogram of sample which is used. So now here C H N S O and ash is abbreviated as C is nothing but the carbon content in the sample, H is the hydrogen content, N is the nitrogen, sulfur, oxygen and the ash content in the sample. These are all determined by ultimate analysis on a dry basis. So the CHNS analysis that we have already discussed this part in the previous lecture as well, but the method for the estimation of the CHNS analysis is the very well known technique. With the help of CHNS analyzer we can estimate the CHNS component of the sample, and the oxygen we estimate by the difference as well. So with the help of CHNS analyzer we can easily find out this particular component of the sample, and the ash content we already discussed this part in the previous lecture. So once we have this information about this component, we can substitute in this equation and we can get the higher heating value for the sample. Correlation here, whatever we have discussed, the correlation is valid within the following range only. That means when the carbon content, if it is greater than 0 but it should be less than 92%. Similarly, the hydrogen content it should be greater than 0.43 but it should be less than 25%. The oxygen content, it should be greater than 0 but less than 50% in the sample. The nitrogen content, again it should be in this particular range, and the ash should be in this particular range, and the calorific value which we can estimate using this correlation, if it is in between this particular range, then this particular correlation is used for estimating the higher heating value of a sample. So now we have seen two different ways by which we can calculate the higher heating value of a sample. One by doing the experiment in the bomb calorimeter, and another one with the help of ultimate analysis such as CHNS analysis and the ash content of the sample. We can also estimate the higher heating value of a sample. So with this, now we can move to the next topic, that is the compositional analysis of a biomass sample. Now the compositional analysis of the biomass sample is very essential. Why? Because it directly affects the thermochemical conversion of a biomass sample. As a result, because as we know, the typical biomass primarily contains ash, extractives, cellulose, hemicellulose and the lignin as a component in its composition. And if we recollect our discussion in the previous lecture under the cell wall component, we already studied these three particular content of topic, that is extractives, cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin and the ash content. So, here we are just elaborating our discussion about how to estimate these quantities in the biomass sample. Why? Because number of techniques are available for the determination of this component, and the determination of some of the components of biomass is covered by specific ASTM standard methods, while some are estimated according to the method which is described by Rowell and et al. So, there are two techniques are there. We can either estimate using the ASTM methods, or there are certain techniques which is established by the author Rowell et al. That can be also used to estimate the composition analysis of a biomass sample. So, the following is a step by step brief description of method that extracts the constituents of the cell wall of wood for their determination. So, the first step is the preparation of sample, and this is one of the most important step before we do the compositional analysis of a biomass sample. It is always necessary to prepare the sample first. So, at first the sample is to be prepared such that it is free from foreign materials and the particles. So, this ASTM method provides a detailed information about the preparation of sample for the analysis. So, now once the sample is prepared, then we can go for the second stage of the analysis, that is the extraction of extractive components of the biomass. So, the extractives are the natural chemical product of the biomass and that are capable of being extracted by some solvents. So, now based on the solvent used for the extraction, these extractives are classified as water soluble extractives, toluene or you can say ethanol soluble extractives and ether soluble extractives. Since these extractives are non-structured and non-polymer compound present in the biomass sample, that could directly affect the compositional analysis of biomass sample as well, and hence it is very much necessary to remove the extractives before the downstream analysis of biomass sample. So, now there are different methods are available by which we can find out the extractive contents of the biomass sample as well. The first one is the ASTM standard method, which is used mainly for wood sample, and the another is nothing but the again ASTM standard method, but it is used for wide range of biomass samples such as softwood, both hard and the soft barkless wood, herbaceous materials, agriculture residues and waste papers. Apart from that, the method described by Rowell et al., as I just mentioned in the previous slide, it may be also used to determine the extractive compounds of the biomass, and the detailed procedure for the estimation of the extractive components of biomass by Rowell and et al. Is briefly described in this particular reference. So, one can go to this particular reference and find out the detailed procedure for the estimation of the extractive components of the biomass. As it is not feasible here to go in details of the estimation and the detailed procedure of estimation. So, I have just highlighted here the few points, and with the help of this reference one can easily find out the extractive contents of the biomass sample. As I already mentioned, these extractives are the non-structured and the non-polymeric component which are present in the biomass sample. So, now suppose if you are not removing these extractives before analyzing the biomass sample, so these extractives while doing the composition analysis of biomass sample may also add up sugar or cellulose and hemicellulose content of the sample. As a result, it may not be appropriate that the cellulose and hemicellulose which you are representing as a values or the specific biomass, it may not be appropriate value, because first step is to remove these extractives and then to use the extractive free biomass for the compositional analysis, so that we can find out the close to values of cellulose and hemicellulose and the lignin content in the biomass sample. So, once this extractive free biomass is available for the estimation purpose, then we can estimate the holocellulose content of the biomass sample. So, the holocellulose is nothing but the cellulose and the hemicellulose content of biomass sample, and the holocellulose is a water insoluble carbohydrate fraction of wood material, and this is the standard ASTM method which is used to hydrolyze the sample. So, once we hydrolyze the sample, after hydrolyzing the sample, the solid whitish residue which is left on the filter paper is a lignin free holocellulose, which can be used further to find out the hemicellulose fraction and the cellulose fraction of the biomass sample. So, this is a solid whitish residue which left on the filter, and it gives the weight of the lignin free holocellulose content in the biomass sample. So, now once you have this extractive free and the lignin free holocellulose sample as obtained from the previous step, then with the help of this sample we can easily find out the hemicellulose component in the biomass and what is its percentage in the specific sample. So, for the representation purpose here, a partly details of method which is highlighted in this reference is shown here. So, in this case what happens is the sample is treated with sodium hydroxide and acetic acid to get cellulose as a solid residue, and the hemicellulose which is as a filtrate and can be run on HPLC to determine the concentration of different component which are present in the sample, that is the hemicellulose content of the specific sample, and examples are the glucose, galactose, mannose, xylose, arabinose. All these are represented as, you can say, the pentose sugar which are present in the hemicellulose fraction of the sample. So, now once we know this cellulose fraction and the hemicellulose fraction of the sample, so now only left out part in the compositional analysis is the lignin content in the sample. The analysis of acid insoluble lignin content of the extractive free biomass, we are always expressing the biomass in terms of extractive free biomass, and the acid insoluble lignin content of extractive free biomass is carried out according to this ASTM method by dissolving a dry extractive free sample, because this is a dry extractive free sample, in 72% sulfuric acid followed by a secondary treatment by fucus, that is called as a secondary hydrolysis by the fucus. So, another ASTM method is also used for this purpose is, in that case the hydrolysis is carried out using 72% sulfuric acid and water alone. So, once we do this treatment, we can estimate the lignin content in the sample as well. So, now all together it gives us the information about the compositional analysis of a biomass sample, and with the help of this we can calculate the cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, extractives and ash content in the biomass sample very easily. Now, if you see here, all these methods are the ASTM standard methods. So, now in case if the determination of compositional analysis of biomass by ASTM standard method is not possible, because these are very time consuming, you can say, the analysis, and also expensive. As a result, an alternative method has been proposed by class, which is using thermogravimetric analysis or differential thermogravimetric analysis. So, in case of thermogravimetric analysis, even the sample requirement is less compared to the conventional technique, that is the ASTM technique, and along with the proximate analysis one can easily measure the compositional analysis of the biomass sample as well. So, in this case, once you perform a TGA analysis using a instrument, the data is represented in the form of weight loss of a sample, or you can say the mass loss of a sample versus the temperature. So, once you plot this data for a specific sample, so you get the nature of the curve like this. So, now if you see here, in this case a constant slope characterizes the different steps of thermal decomposition, but now it is hardly detectable in this TGA plot because we cannot distinguish the different steps of decomposition here because of the overlap temperature ranges. As a result, the differential thermogravimetric technique is used, where you can say the derivative of the weight loss is plotted against the temperature. So, in that case what happens is like we can easily find out the conversion that overlap as well as which are associated with the poor mass loss. So, if you see here, you can observe several peaks in this graph which you cannot see here in the TGA plot, and these particular peaks usually corresponds to different thermal decomposition processes which are associated with the main constituents of the solid sample. So, but when we have mentioned here the solid sample, here mostly we are just specifying about the biomass. So, with the help of DTG, it allows us to estimate the hemicellulose, the cellulose and the lignin fraction which is present in the extractive free biomass, or you can say the extractive free and the ash free biomass. So, in that case what happens is like once we have the DTG peak here and we have the different peaks which can represent the thermal decomposition behavior of the different constituents of the solid sample. So, the degradation of the volatile sample, if you see here, it starts at around 120 to 200 degree C temperature range, and once you increase the temperature beyond this, you can see that there are two areas of weight loss producing a single peak, or we can say a shoulder which is located at the lower temperature range here, and this is a peak which is at a relatively higher temperature. So, the peak which is at a lower temperature, it represents the decomposition of the hemicellulose fraction in the solid sample, or you can say in the biomass sample, and the next peak which is at relatively higher temperature, it represents the cellulose fraction of the sample. And if you further increase the temperature above 400 degrees C, suppose, we can see the most of the volatiles are decomposed and indicates that rapid decrease in the devolatilization rate of the sample. That means the devolatilization rate here is decreasing rapidly with further increase in the temperature, and however beyond 400 degrees C, if you just try to see the temperature range here, some devolatilization is still appearing in this particular range which is observed between 400 to suppose 600 degrees C, and this is mainly caused by the lignin decomposition in the sample. So, once we have this specific graph of a specific sample, we can easily find out the cellulose, hemicellulose and the lignin fraction which is present in the sample using this simple technique. So, now up till this point we discussed about the compositional analysis of the biomass sample. Now, suppose after completing the entire characterization of the sample, if we need to check the biomass is of sufficient quality, then how to do that? So, in that case there are some directions are advised. With the help of that, we can easily find out whether the specific biomass which has been characterized is acceptable or can be used for a specific process or it should be used for some other processes. So, with the help of this, if you see here, while discussing the importance of biomass of a sufficient quality, it is important to remember that this term is depends on the technology chosen for the conversion purpose, because in this case it is most important if the sufficient quality of biomass is not a fixed criteria. In case if you are just trying to use any conversion system, but in that conversion system the sufficient quality of biomass is not a strict criteria, then in that case what we can do is like we can improve the composition of biomass by a pretreatment technique, but by doing so it will have an impact on the capital cost of the process, or you can say the capital cost of the conversion system. For example, if the moisture content in the biomass is relatively high, and if you are trying to utilize this specific biomass for a thermal conversion system, then obviously a pre-processing in terms of drying step of the biomass is required, so that we can remove the substantial amount of moisture from the biomass, and the biomass with a specific moisture content which is advisable for the thermal conversion system can be used, so that this drying step is important before utilizing such biomass for the thermal conversion system. So, instead if the biomass with lesser moisture content can directly be used for the thermal conversion, so we can neglect this particular step, and by avoiding that we can reduce the capital cost of the conversion system. So, this is the one direction by which we can convert the specific biomass into a required product. Similarly, if the biomass with undesirable qualities such as high ash content, likewise in this case also if the high ash content biomass is bypassed, for example by improving the technology again here. So, if you just try to implement another technology again, so in that case it will also have an impact on the capital cost of the conversion system, because this part we already discussed in our previous lecture. For the thermal conversion system, the low ash content biomass is preferable for the good conversion of biomass to a required product. If the biomass is very wet, as I mentioned earlier, usually in the range of say for example 60 to 65%, then it is better to use such biomass for biogas processes rather than using for the combustion process. So, by which we are just reducing the cost of the conversion system, as the high moisture content is also the requirement of the biogas process. So, it will compensate the moisture content in the sample, and hence it can be directly used for the biogas production. So, these are the ways by which we can select a sufficient quality biomass for the conversion system. So, with this we will end our lecture here. In the next lecture we will discuss about the biomass conversion processes, and in the biomass conversion processes we will cover the biochemical and the thermochemical conversion processes, and later we will discuss bioconversion into biogas. For this lecture, if you have any queries, please feel free to contact me at bbgoud@iitg.ac.in. Thank you.